Hello everybody and welcome along to our night practice session. The sun has dropped over the horizon right opposite our commentary booth. We're live in sound and vision, and the lights here at Barcelona, Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia have taken over on the front straight. The rest of the circuit, very, very dark indeed. Actually, I'm going to have to pop next door and turn off the next comms box lights as well, because we're getting a little bit of reflection there. Paul Trustwell is alongside me. We've got fabulous pictures here and an hour and a half to come of night practice where all the drivers have to do a couple of laps. We'll tell you about the people who have problems at the moment. We started our 2019 season for the Hankook 24-hour series, both in Europe and on the international series at Dubai in January. We then moved on to Mugello in March, which I thoroughly enjoyed, a track that I'd not been to before. Then it was Spa in April. May it was Brno, another new track for me. Portimao was our last 24-hour race in July, and here we are at the end of August for one of the most prestigious races of the year, and a race with a lot of history here, originally just for touring cars, and a joint promotion between Creventic and the Royal Automobile Club of Catalonia. And then we'll finish off our season with the last race of the international part of our calendar, and that of course is at the Circuit of the Americas just outside Austin beside the airport, and that's the 15th to the 17th of November. Paul and John in the booth, Shea Adam down in the pit lane enjoying what is a very pleasant evening, Shea.
It is, and you can tell it's nice because the drivers have emerged, which is a nice change. Unfortunately, driver change practice seems to be the theme of night practice so far. And the first car that we're going to talk about, the Bohemia Energy Scuderia Praha Ferrari, did not qualify where they wanted to. Matteo Malicelli, not a happy boy after that session, but they have the championship to remember. They've won 5 races in a row. They've got the championship if they just keep calm. So go out, do night practice, get your minimum laps done, which is 2, by the way, per driver. Get a good setup for the night, but the race ending at noon means that your daytime setup more important. And then bring the car home and give the crew an early night.
Yeah, we're just a couple of minutes away from getting this underway. Paul Trustwell is alongside me. The vagaries of what we'll see now, of course, will not set the grid. That's been done, and we'll go through some of the times in a moment in the next 90 minutes or thereabouts. And however, setting up lights, getting the drivers through. It's not the longest night session, as Shea said, in terms of darkness hours, but it's an important part of what goes on in this race here.
I'll tell you another thing, and I've been dashing around talking to various people since dinner, but it's
Very
the kind
good
of thing
dinner,
that a lot of people don't think about. It's not just the drivers, the mechanics have to practice in the night as well. If you're the mechanic and you've got to change the front left-hand wheel, you've got to make sure that you can still run round, see where you're going to put the wheel gun, put it on the wheel, get it off, put the other wheel on, and do that in night time. Now, some of the teams have brought a big gantry along with them that overlooks, and I'm sure Shea will be having a look at this, which overlooks their pit apron and shines down very brightly on that apron. Other of the teams aren't so well off, and they haven't got such lights, and they're having to do it by either headlamps that they carry with them,
literally
or
on their heads. We're not talking about car-type headlamps here.
No, a headlamp, a lamp that you strap over your head, like the postman sometimes, or the milkman has one. But that kind of thing is something you have to practice as well. So, you know, getting the mechanics used to getting the wheels on and off, making sure that the guy who is strapping the driver in can actually see the seatbelts to make sure that you can do the seatbelts up. You know, where does the drink bottle fit in? Can you still see where that goes? There's an awful lot to do, not just for the drivers, for the teams as well. Green flag, an hour and a half of night practice underway, John.
And this is an all skate, all teams, all drivers, all classes, both of the championships here. And let's remind ourselves that there are 2 championships here. The TCE Championship, Touring Car Endurance, made up of TCR and the A3 and the SP3 category cars, of which there are 18. The rest of the field are made up of the GT categories, and that's a separate championship. And that's GT4, A6. No, it isn't, because that's a full one. That is A6 Pro and AM, which next year will be GT3 Pro and AM, and their attendant different categories in GT, including the 991 class, etc., etc. If you're not familiar with 24-hour Hankook racing, if you go to 24hseries.com, www.24hseries.com, then that gives you a huge amount of information about the series. Now, I was just looking down into the Renault RS01 pit, and they have got all of the bodywork laid out nicely. But what I don't know, and we'll have to get Shade down and have a look at the back of the car to see if the car's actually got a motive power unit in. I'm just seeing a car being pushed backwards to the fuel pumps, I think, and that is 40th position.
I think it's 526. I think it's the Ligier.
I think it's the Ligier as well, actually, yes.
The Nordschleifer Racing Ligier. Yeah, the fuel pumps are generally opened before the session gets underway, but because we had a GT4 support race,
yes.
It may well be that they couldn't get at the fueling area before then.
Just see how dark it is in the fueling area as well.
It is very
That's
dark
another thing. You were talking about how the mechanics have got to learn about, and that's another thing. They'll have a separate set of people down there who do have to wear, I mean, those guys have got the short straw. They've got to wear the fireproofs. There's two guys there. And
they are team members who refuel
Correct.
the cars. They are not circuit staff. I've been to a lot of 24-hour races this year, and some of them actually have circuit staff doing the refueling. And that can be a bit of a nail-biter, because you never know whether the circuit staff are going to refuel your car as quickly as you would like them to. Down to the pits, Shea Adam.
Ryan McLeod, the man behind Mark Cars. I'm so glad to see one of the Mark IIs running in this race, but I don't remember seeing your name on the initial entry list. So when did you know that you were going to be coming over to Spain?
I reckon probably Sunday at home in Australia. Of course said, if you're coming out, you better bring your helmet. We need a number 5, so I'm the number 5.
It's a pretty cool lineup. You've got Corraiser, who's a series staple, and then Jim Briotti. And there's some banners in the back of the garage celebrating the fact that this is his 99th 24-hour race. Yeah. Can you imagine ever doing that many?
That's crazy. I mean, I really had to sit and think about it for a minute. I thought, how many could you do in a year, and how many years would it take? But it's a lot. He reckons it's, 2 a year over 50 years, but I don't. It's a lot. So it's really great that he's here. He's going to do his 100th as well in a Mark car, so we're happy about that. And he's a great bloke, great driver, and goes well with the team. Cor's a fantastic guy as well, so yeah, it's a good environment.
Now, not all the viewers and listeners might be aware of what Mark Cars is, so tell us a little bit about these beauties.
Well, we started out actually, we bought our own production racer from Australia to this race, and also to Dubai in 2011. And we came back in 2012 and we thought we need a bit more car around us. So we went home and made our own car, which was the Mark I car, and came back in 2014 and 15 with that car. And we got a group of customers around us who then wanted a bit more car again. So we went back home and designed and made the Mark II car. And we rolled that out in 2018. I think, at Bathurst 12 Hour again, where we sort of got our own little spot there. And we sold some to some of the competitors in this series, and they're perfectly suited for it.
It's very much an Australian enterprise, but it's taken off globally. What's it been like to come to tracks like Barcelona and then race something that you created?
Yeah, it is. It's nice. I actually drove one of the cars at Spa a little bit earlier on, and I drove one in Zolder just the other month too. So it's nice, you get in a car, it's sort of got your name on it a bit, and I end up doing a lot of work on them because, I know all about them, but we're helping the customers integrate with the cars, and we just want to make sure that they succeed with their racing endeavours the same as we enjoyed with ours.
So again, for the perhaps uneducated, it looks like a Mustang on the top, but what's beneath the bonnet?
Well, we call it an iconic styling. We don't really call it a Mustang, but underneath it's a tube frame chassis. It's made with our partners, Pace Innovations in Australia, a really talented group of people that designed the chassis, and then we put all our own sort of know-how and parts and electronic systems and that into it. And then we had a guy draw the body. Actually got most of the body parts made in Lithuania, believe it or not. So yeah, there's parts of the car from all over the place.
And the engine unit is?
It's out of a Ford Mustang, believe it or not. So yeah, this one has the 5.2 Coyote motor. So yeah, anyone who's driven a GT350 Mustang, that's what's under the hood. A few little tweaks, but basically straight off of Ford Performance. And yeah, you can hear it go around. It has a nice song, they say.
That it does. Ryan, thank you so much for a few minutes of your time. I know you got to put on the fire suit and go drive that thing.
Yeah. Well, half my luck. Thanks.
He comes from good royalty too. McLeod Sr. won the Bathurst 1000.
Did indeed, won down in Bathurst, and that is a real Australian success story. Half look, you're absolutely right. I've got them in licence. Tell them, tell Core, if Ryan's too busy running the team and he needs a stint. 717 just being pushed out onto the pit lane. What a fantastic looking piece of kit that is. Low slung, svelte, huge diffuser at the back of it, and everything they learned in the Mark 1 cars, which were 5-door hatchbacks that had the look of maybe a Mazda 3 or a Ford Focus. There was half a chance you could have had other body panels on that car as well. But everything they learned on that car, still a tube frame underneath, was put into the coupe, the Mark II. And I mean, the shut lines, if you go and look at that car, the shut lines between and the lines between the panels, the gaps on those panels, Paul, they are absolutely brilliant. And there are series manufacturers who'd be happy to see that on their cars, and that's a race car that is producing, all right, limited numbers, but you know, good Australian engineering gone into that.
It's come on a long way, and I think Brian put it quite nicely. I thought was they got some customers and they wanted more car.
Yes.
So they delivered them more car, and you know. He talks about iconic shapes and things. You know, cars, you and I know this, John, but they are emotional things. They are things people get passionate about. And, you know, what Brian McLeod is doing is providing an outlet for people to enjoy their passion. Yeah, more power to more car, I say.
More power to more car, yes. Very good. No, it's a proper Australian success story, and good to see Ryan here and getting the opportunity to drive some of his cars as well. Hello to Liam Redford, who's tuned in sound and vision. Good to know that you're here. Or at least you're tuned in to Rupert Coles, who's here at the track. Chris Suku, looking forward to some Friday night motorsport with perhaps a little cricket commentary from Shea. Oh, we should have mentioned that while she was talking to Ryan. At RSL_studio, if you'd like to get in touch with us. Andrew Marriott will head into the pit lane in about 35 minutes' time as we do our own driver change down there in the pit lane. Paul, let's talk about qualifying that happened earlier. I'm going to keep an eye on what's going on outside, but let our viewers enjoy the pictures, and our listeners on RS1 will bring them up to date with perhaps what's happened. I know it's been a busy day of motorsport today. Many of you will be tuning across from the excitement at Silverstone. Qualifying earlier on. Let's talk TCE, the touring car endurance category first, with perhaps a little bit of a surprise because it wasn't TCR cars to the fore.
No, two SP3 class cars, first and second, and they will be the front row. Is that a surprise? Well, yes it is, but no it isn't, because SP3, it is possible to do quite a quick put quite a quick car together there. In the race, they get constrained by the lap times that they do and the amount of fuel that they're then allowed. The faster they go, the less fuel they're allowed at each stop, so they have to stop more often. And that means they get slowed down as a result of that. But the two SP3 cars that will be starting on the front row of the TCE grid then. Firstly, the 310 car, the Munkoff Racing BMW M4. Van Berlo was the driver, Glenn Van Berlo was the driver who set the pole position time. And alongside him is the RTR Projects entered KTM Crossbow. There are 2 other KTM Crossbows which are proper GT cars. They're running in the SPX class, but the SP3 class KTM Crossbow, run by RTR Projects, car number 224, that car setting the 2nd fastest qualifying time, and the time was one that was set by Eric Yanis, an all-Czech driving crew on the RTR Projects car, and so that was 2nd fastest. The times are 1 minute 55.617 for Glenn Van Berlo in the BMW, or 156.047 for the KTM Crossbow. 3rd fastest, 2nd row of the TCE division grid, but the fastest of the TCR cars was the Autorama by Wolf Power Racing. This was the Volkswagen Golf car number 112, being driven by Ben Leuchter in a car that he's been scheduled to drive alongside Yannick Metzler, but Yannick Metzler is actually down to drive 2 cars, and I suspect he'll devote more of his time to driving the other one, car number 114. But 112, the fastest of the TCR class cars, in a time of 1 minute 56.603. And then 4th fastest, 2nd of the TCR class cars, is the AC Motorsport Audi RS3. This is the car that leads the championship. And I should stress this is the European Championship, and this weekend is the final race in the European Championship for 2019. And AC Motorsport, with their Audi RS3, was the quickest, is leading the championship, or at least 2 of the drivers are, in the shape of Stefan Perrin and James Kay. The qualifying time in that car was actually set by Mathieu Detry, and it was a 156, beg your pardon, 0.618 for the AC Motorsport Audi. That was the top 2 in TCR, and then the 3rd fastest car in TCR, another Golf, and this one is the other Autorama Golf, and this one was Yannick Metzler who set the time in that car. The other cars in the TCE division, down in the A3 class, and that was led by Hoffer Racing, by Bomb Motorsport. They ended up with quite a successful qualifying, did Hoffer, because they got a car on pole in one of the GT divisions as well. But number 869, the Hoffer Racing car, which ended up having Michael Fischer driving it, the car number 869, who wasn't originally down to drive that car, but he did get into it and is an additional driver. Whether he'll actually drive it in the race or whether he'll just drive it in qualifying, we'll have to wait and see. But Michael Fischer then, not the weatherman, but he was the quickest in the Hoffer Racing A3 car, 2 minutes 03.460, ending up almost a second quicker than the Honda Civic from Synchro Motorsport, which Alan James took round. Actually, it might have been Matt Neal, not sure who was actually quickest in that car. But the Synchro Motorsport car number 676 ending up 2nd on the grid for the A3 class. And that's important for them because they are trying, by their own admission it's a long shot, but they are trying to get the TCE Championship off the AC Motorsport duo of Stefan Perrin and James Kay. They're just a point behind in the championship, but unfortunately they have a smaller class, so have less points at their disposal to get.
That was the TCE, the Touring Car Endurance part of qualifying. We'll bring you up to date with what happened in GT in a moment, but let's just have a quick look at the times. As we mentioned, they're not standing for anything as far as setting the grid is concerned, but it is Kenneth Heyer in the Hoffer Racing Mercedes-AMG GT3, the number 10 car, back to their normal number, if you will, in that white, red and black car. Jochen Krumbach has just brought the Wochenspiegel Team Monschau Ferrari number 22 into the pit lane. That leads in A6 Pro and is second, but by 0.8 of a second in this darkness practice here. Lamborghini Huracan makes it 3 manufacturers out of 3, 152.004 as against a 150.6 for the best time this evening. That's Adrian Amstutz, who's been behind the wheel of the Barwell Motorsport number 77 Lamborghini, which will start on pole position tomorrow. Daniel Ollermann has just come into the pit lane, the 91 Herbeth Motorsport machine. He's in 4th position. Then let's go through the other leaders in class. KTM GTX 1st and 2nd. The true racing cars in SPX. Laura Kreiheimer and Hubert Trunkenpolt behind the wheel of the 216 and 217 in 8th and 9th position, with very creditable times of 1:54.991 for Laura, and Hubert has just improved to a 57.3.
That was Angelhofer, actually, who did the 57.3 in 217.
All right, okay.
Klaus Angelhofer.
All right, okay. Yes, I see Hubert's just gone out in that car. My apologies. Aston Martin Vantage leads the GT4 category. Rodrigo Gillon, excuse me, in the Aston Martin.
Except that was a Nico Verdonk time set before Rodrigo took the car over.
Smashing. TCR led by Autorama. Golf GTI TCR, the 1112 car, 13th overall. 991 is Orchid Racing Team in the 991 Cup car. That's the Gen 2 car. Richard Feller has just brought that car into the pit lane. SP4 Nordschleifer Racing, Guillaume Romain in the Ligier GS2 in a very impressive 21st overall, 2 minutes 2. And A3 Fun M Motorsport M240 Racing Cup. Just had a bit of an off into the gravel for, I think that was one of the BMWs there that went a little bit wide. Harold Rettig is behind the wheel of that A3 leader. And SP3, I think I didn't mention there. Did I spin past that? Are they a little bit further down? SP3, Flavian Remy is behind the wheel of the PR&V. Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport in the 302 car, and that car is out on circuit as well at the moment. And Shea Adam has an update on that category. Shea, what can you tell us?
Well, not all the cars have gone out yet. The Perfection Racing Europe Ginetta is yet to make its way out onto the racetrack. They changed the floor of this car, which main component attaches beneath the rear bumper. It's a complete bolt job that they have to do, in effect 5 bolts on each side, and they've just now put Tommy Lagerson into the car. This is a car to watch, though, because it was the 2018 Champions of the Continents driving this machine this weekend, an all-Danish lineup. They're a little bit tardy to night practice, so they're going to have to work pretty hard to get all 4 of their drivers cycled through, but the good news is, finally, they have a driver in the car instead of sitting behind it and watching the work going on.
Yeah, that red and white Ginetta G55 looking absolutely splendid. Paul, just before we talk about GT and the qualifying, how many points, you were talking about the point situation for Synchro, how many points are on offer in A6 Pro and ARM? Can anybody still beat the Scuderia Praha GT team overall in the European Championship?
Well, there's 2 questions in one there.
Yes.
One is how many points are available.
Yes.
And because this is a 24-hour race, if there's more than 10 cars in your class, there are 30 points available. If there's less than 10, but more than 6, there's 29 points available. If there's less than 6 in your class, then there are 28 points available. So that's the answer to the first question. How many points does Scuderia Praha lead by? The answer is 11 in the teams championship. So
from whom?
Do the maths yourself. Second in the championship at the moment, this is the teams overall championship, is CP Racing. Now, bear in mind that Scuderia Praha run in the Pro A6 class, of which there are 6 entries, and the CP Racing car, the number 85 car, runs in the AM class, of which there are only 4 entries. So there could be an extra point available for Scuderia Praha, unless that one of those cars ends up not starting the race, because in order for the points to count, it depends on how many people start the race, not how many people are entered in the race. But yes, it is still open, but Scuderia Praha very much have the upper hand.
Right, that's a key point. It's how many people start the race, not how many people enter. Right, okay, that's very important. That brings us neatly on to qualifying for GT, which, if you weren't with us when we were in Sound and Vision, is an absolute cracker. We'll replay on RS1 the qualifying at the end of this session. So, spoiler alert, this is a bit like on the 10 o'clock news in the UK on a Saturday night before they went to Match of the Day. If you don't want to know the results, then just tune away for a few moments now.
Yes, okay.
Okay. But listen,
you've had your opportunity, so
we've warned you.
If you're still listening.
It was a really interesting qualifying session. 45 minutes, of course. You tend to think, well, how much can go on? Everybody will go and do a few fast laps at the beginning. Then everybody, some of them will park it, some of them will do some laps. But there were teams and drivers who absolutely wanted to be at the front of the field.
Very much so. And unlike that football match where if you know the result, it's not worth watching, this, even if you do know the result, it is worth listening again.
Oh, no, I agree.
Because it was great fun. Barwell Motorsport ended up top of the heap. Number 77, the Lamborghini Huracan, which was at the top of the heap in this night practice session earlier on, but has since been pushed down to third. Adrian Amstutz has now got out of the car and handed over to Leo Mikitsky. And they, in fact, it was down to Dennis Lind who set the fastest lap time, 1 minute 46.577. Patrick Kuyala went out after Dennis, but wasn't able to go quicker. Second quickest was Herbert Motorsport.
And it all got a bit tight at the end. I think possibly a bit tighter than Mark Lemmer, the man at the head of Barwell, might have hoped.
Who knows? Who knows? We did hear from Mark, and to be fair, because Barwell have had a rather trying day, it has to be said. Their Lamborghini has been misbehaving, having been absolutely immaculate for most of the season, as Mark described it, because of different fuel that this is. I don't think he was laying any blame to the fuel, just that the ability of the Lamborghini to get the fuel into the engine wasn't quite efficient enough, but they've got that seemingly sorted now, and Mark giving good credit to the team for getting everything sorted out quickly enough, and getting all the other work that had to go on as well, with new clutch, new gearbox, all into the car before qualifying. So great work from Barwell, ending up 1600ths of a second quicker than the Herbert Porsche, which was second quickest in the end. Klaus Bachler certainly gave it everything he had, but wasn't quite able to go more quickly. And that's the 93 Herbert car, which, remember, is an AM class car. So during the race, although it'll be a little bit lighter, and it will run, I think it's 30 kilos less. It gets 5 litres more at every fuel stop, but it will have less experienced drivers in the car for something like 12 hours of the race, because the pro drivers are not allowed to drive more than 12 hours of the race in an AM class car. That was the second quickest car overall and the fastest Porsche. The second quickest Porsche and third overall was a GPX Porsche, the Gulf-coloured car, which was being driven by Nicky Pastorelli, and very quickly indeed by Nicky Pastorelli. He did a 1 minute 46.808 to be a further 600ths of a second slower than the Herbert car. And then Max Edelhoff did some great times in the number 34 car collection Audi to end up with a 146.944, which was a further, 10th slower than the two Porsches ahead of him. So very close indeed. 1/10 of a second separating the first two, 600ths separating the next two, and then a 10th separating the car collection Audi. And then where is Scuderia Praha? The answer is 5th, Malincelli, with a 1 minute 47.004, a further 600ths of a second slower than the Audi. So the overall gap between the top 5 was less than half a second. In fact, you can go down to the top 6, because we had Christian Frankenhout in the Hoffer Mercedes, car number 10, who was a further 400ths of a second slower than that, 147.044. And then Hendrik Still in the Wochenspiegel Ferrari, this is the number 22 car, he did a 1 minute 47.055 and was a further 100ths of a second slower. So just going down, we actually had, how many? 10 cars separated by less than a second. So it gives you an idea of just how close it was. Behind the Wochenspiegel Ferrari was the other Herbert Porsche. Sven Muller was quickest in the 91 car. Then the Fricadelli Racing Porsche, which had Felipe Fernandez Laza qualifying it. That was number 31, finished 9th quickest. And then 10th quickest was number 88, Pierre Caffer at the wheel of the car collection, the orange car collection Audi. And that finished up 10th fastest. And can you imagine, Pierre Caffer was just 7/10 of a second off pole position.
Yeah, just a tad under, actually, 6
0.695, exactly right.
I remember that because I remember it was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, so
Around
the top
2.8,
10,
2.9 mile circuit.
yeah, the top 10 within a 7/10 of a second of each other. And amongst those, of course, you had Lamborghini, 3 Porsches, 2 Audis, 2 Ferraris, and a Mercedes. So that was very close indeed. In the other classes, we had the KTM Crossbows not leading the way as far as SPX was concerned, because the quickest SPX car was actually the Vortex.
Yes.
Which,
pretty blue colour this weekend, that guy, yeah.
Fernando Gutierrez Argui was driving. 100% entrance record in the Barcelona 24 hours, 1 minute 49.401, finished 12th overall, but on top of SPX, ahead of one of the True Racing is the entry. They're KTM Crossbows, but they're Crossbow GTXs, and they're run by Reiter Engineering effectively, so we might call them Reiter at some point, but that's the entrant is actually True Racing. And then third fastest in SPX.
Is it not Reiter True Racing? Is that where RTR comes from?
No, because that's a different team. RTR is a different team.
Oh, yes, of course it is, yes. Yes, of course. Duh.
So, yeah,
it is just True Racing, isn't it?
It is just True Racing. Cor Oyser's car, the Mark II, ended up third quickest in SPX. So we've got a Vortex, a KTM GTX, and the Mark II, first, second, and third in SPX. This is the strongest SPX class that we've had in a Creventic race for some time, actually. I'm quite looking forward to seeing how it goes, because, shall we say, none of them are particularly known for their reliability. But I'm certainly looking forward to seeing all 3 of them trying to get to the checkered flag. As far as the 991 class was concerned, Tom Dillman, a late entry to the field, and he ended up on pole position for the 991 class in the Team Webhead's Porsche 991 Cup car, the Gen 1 class car. It'll be interesting to see how the Gen 1 and the Gen 2 cars compare actually out on the track, because the Gen 1s are considerably more fuel efficient than the Gen 2 cars, although they have a slightly bigger restrictor. As I say, we'll see how that one pans out. But Tom Dillman certainly wasn't hanging around at all in qualifying, and ended up 0.4 of a second quicker than the next fastest 991 class car was, which was the car of Fabrice Ancel, the 911 numbered car, and that's from Porsche L'Oreal Racing. They are the car that leads the championship as far as the 991 class is concerned, and they are the ones perhaps with the most to lose, trying to get as many championship points as they can.
Thank you, Paul. If you are just joining us, we're live trackside. This is the night practice and driver qualifying session for the 24 hours, the Hankook 24 hours of Barcelona. It's the Circuit Catalunya. Good to have your company this evening. Full live sound and vision coverage this evening, and for 12 hours until midnight from the start tomorrow. In fact, 12 and a half actually, because she'll be down on the grid with the grid walk made famous by Nick Damon. So Shea's got some big shoes to fill. Actually, Nick has got really big feet, and he has left his trainer, so she has that literally. And then we'll be back for the last 4 hours of the race, 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, Central European time. So time to get that in before things start getting serious at either Silverstone or Spa later on in the day. We have had an incident out on the circuit between Tim Muller's Car Collection Motorsport Audi and the number 310, and that is the Munkoff Racing BMW, the SP3 car. Marco Poland is in that car. No further action on that, so there has been a bit of a coming together. Paul talking about the Scuderia Praha team, the bright red Ferrari. They've been the team to beat. They have been the team that everyone have set themselves at. They're 9th at the moment, Josef Kroll, behind the wheel of that Ferrari 488 GT3. The last Creventic race that they didn't stand on the top step of the podium was that back in Dubai. Paul?
Dubai, yes.
So all the European races so far this 2019 season, they've won.
Yes, and you can go back to the last of the European races last year
At Spa.
At Spa, which they also won.
When Herbert were running out of fuel.
When Herbert, they weren't running out of fuel, but they didn't get the fuel in quickly enough.
Right.
Yeah, so that Scuderia Praha certainly is, as you say, on a roll. Equally, as you say, only running in 10th place at the, ninth place at the moment, thanks to the time that Josef Kral has set. Pisaric has done a 1:54 exactly. Josef Kral has done a 1:53.1. Malicelli hasn't been out this evening yet. A new car goes to the top of the list. It's now a Herbert 1-2 because Sven Muller has put in a faster time than Klaus Bachler. So we've got Sven Muller 1:49.422, number 91, Herbert number 93, Klaus Bachler 1:49.527.
And that, I think, will be a little bit of redemption for Sven, who had a lap that would have put him second on the grid, disallowed. Bit of a problem a moment or two ago for the number 135. Which is the Vaporu Motorsport car, who had to take avoiding action through... Now, where's that then? Through the barriers at the bottom of the chicane before the final corner, I think. And that was Marco Rafael Chiarocci. And now we've got another problem out on the circuit with Thierry Boyer in the Nordschleife Racing Peugeot. Is that out on the pits, out on the circuit? Yes, it is. The little 208 Racing Cup car seems to be
10.
Overheating, or maybe a brake problem. No, I'm going to say that's... Oh, now you see it's coming out from under the wheel arches now. Turn 10 is at the bottom of the infield straight, before the hard braking area that goes up into the amphitheatre. I think he might have just got round there, actually, out of turn 10 and heading towards turn 11. Yeah, I think he has. Technical problem. The team scrambling in the pit lane, and the Avalon car also sitting in at the pit lane as well. That's the Fricatelli team car, unmistakable in its red and white livery, with the various meat products depicted on it around the car. Meatballs. I'm not being abusive. That is their business. That is Klaus Avalon's business.
And a glass of beer as well.
Well, why not?
What else goes with meatballs like a glass of beer?
I have to say, beer is bread in a glass for me, so it would have to be a glass of wine.
Yeah.
But
That's only because of your diet choices.
Well, yes, it is. But my diet choices have worked very well. I'm very happy with it.
We've gone code 60 whilst they deal with the Nordschleife Peugeot. And so that gives an opportunity for a snatch vehicle to come into play.
They tend to be Nissan pickup trucks here, Nissan Navara pickup trucks. And I think that's what has gone out there in the darkness. Whilst we have that happening there, let's take the opportunity to take a couple of interviews. And Shea Adam is down in the pit lane in this first half of the session. And just bear with me for a moment, Shea, while I'm just checking to see what's happening and whether this Peugeot is going to be pulled away. They've got the tour up on it. They're talking through the right-hand side door at the driver, and I think that'll flat tow away. Yes, it will. Sorry, Shea, go ahead.
That's all right. Philippe, you're nice enough to talk to us, even though you have to get into the car in about 90 seconds' time. The Fricatelli Porsche, it's had its work cut out for it today, but do you think you've gotten everything?
Well, it's our first time here, the first time that we are competing here in the Creventic series. So first of all, it's just to get used to the track, to the tires and all the new surroundings. But actually, we are quite happy. For sure, some things to do, some things to solve, but I'm looking forward.
You've done a Creventic race. I saw you at Circuit of the Americas last year driving a Glickenhaus. How much nicer is it to be in the top class in the A6 Pro?
Actually, for sure, it's nice. I mean, you're fighting for the overall win. This is the main target. So actually, I'm quite happy.
Thank you for the chat. I know you got to go get ready.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That car's just gone out. Felipe Fernandez-Lezer will be getting in when it comes back around. The Peugeot has been recovered by the Nissan Navara, and the tow ropes just snapped as they got it off the circuit, but that they can sort out. I think it's just pulled free from the tow hitch, actually. Good chance to see Code 60 working in the night time, and for people to find the fuel in the dark under Code 60. So, you know, a little bit of lost time with 55 minutes to go, but not wasted time.
Well, they would have had a practice Code 60 in any case, John, because they always do. Every time Creventic comes to a circuit, they bring their race officials along that sit in race control, but the marshals, of course, they're locals to the Circuit de Catalunya, so they need to be taken through the Code 60 procedure. They may not have worked at a Creventic race before, so yes, the flags have to be handed out, and the marshals have to make sure that they know how to illuminate them, and all the drivers can then see them. So even though the car has now been removed to a place of safety, it's entirely possible that we'll turn this Code 60 into a drill in order to make sure that we can get rescue vehicles and so on out onto the circuit, should we need to do so during the race. And brings me to another of the constant topics which is being discussed, is how many Code 60s are there going to be during the race itself. The field is a big field, but it's not a huge one, 48 cars. The circuit is a Grand Prix standard of circuit, so there is plenty of runoff. I personally think that we might get away with I don't know, say 2 hours of Code 60 in total on the race.
Wow.
Last year we had very nearly 4. We had 19 Code 60 periods. But it's so difficult to know, and you know, predicting when the Code 60s are going to happen, so difficult to work out for the teams during the race. And of course it's so crucial because we've seen it happen so often before, where you'll come into the pits, you'll make your pit stop, and then it goes Code 60, and you get so frustrated that you sometimes you get the luck, sometimes you don't get the luck. So, as I say, it's one of those things you have to be able to judge. Less than a minute to go to the end of this one, John.
There is a new consideration for Code 60 as well, Paul, because the petrol station now is an offshoot of the pit lane and not a complete run around into a part of the paddock. The Panther fuels tankers are sitting where the pumps used to be in previous years, and the pit lane is just effectively another lane off the entry to the pit lane. Now, the reason I mention that is because as cars come into it, as they are doing now, the bright white headlights are coming into the pit area. There are 8 pumps, and probably behind the 8 pumps there's room for maybe 2 or 3 cars, and then they'll be blocking the pit lane. And in the drivers' and team managers' briefings today, it's been made absolutely clear by Creventic that they will not let people queue back into the pit lane entrance and therefore block the pit lane. Now, that's great, and I understand that, but the problem is, if you're running out of fuel, what do? Where are we going to have a bit of an operation stack on the way in to the last chicane, where we've got people sort of sitting, hanging around to wait for somebody on a radio to tell them they can move in the pit lane?
There's 2 schools of thought. The first school of thought is to say you never run the tank completely dry. You know how much fuel it takes you to get around using a Code 60, and you will never run it down that low, just in case exactly the scenario that you describe happens. The other one is to say, okay, if we run out of fuel on the circuit, do you know what? It's not the end of the world. Because we're under Code 60, the tow truck will come out, it'll bring us back to the pit area, it'll drop us at the fueling station, we'll be able to get on with it. You will probably lose a lap at most. You might easily lose that queuing, even if you could lose.
That's true.
So those are the 2 schools of thought. I know which one I would...
Don't run out of fuel.
Yeah, you never take it that close. It's a bit like your driving time. There's a 2-hour driving limit, but you never run that to the last minute in case there's a Code 60. Now, I've spoken to people and they've said, well, if that did happen, we could go to talk to the race director and explain why. And yes, but if you don't actually make that call, then you don't have to go and talk to the race director, and you don't then have to do some explaining.
And you don't have to throw themselves on their good offices, because yes, it's at their discretion, of course it is, but they can just as easily say no as yes.
Exactly, and especially if, there's a tight battle for the lead, there is a rule book, and if you don't obey the rule book, then the person that you're competing against is going to come back to you and say, look, it says this in the rule book, da-de-da. So, you need to leave a little bit of a margin on all of your calculations, just in case. As I say, there's a code 60, and instead of getting around to the end of the next lap in about 1 minute and 45, 1 minute and 50 seconds, it takes you 4 minutes to get back to the pits, which is what it will do under code 60, then, you don't run out of drive time.
Yeah. Race control are just reminding all the teams that the high beam headlights and additional LED bars have to be turned off as soon as the car is in the pit lane, and that includes turning right into the refueling area just as you come into the start of the run into the pit lane. I was just watching down on the pit lane there, the Synchro 676 team with their Honda. They've got an additional light bar where the license plate, the number plate, would be right in the middle of the front of the car, and they were just getting that at the right height. Nice, that's a good height, that, because it'll project very, very low out in front of you and give you a really good run. And even if there's a bit of overnight mist and fog, should cut through that like that. 40 clicks, by the way, in the pit lane, and the pit lane speed limit starts just as you come round the right-hander and before you peel into the refueling area, obviously, but I feel I should mention that before someone asks about it.
And in the refueling area, there's a 20 kilometre per hour.
Yeah, it's walking pace, yeah.
It's a fast walking pace, but yes. And there was something else I was going to say when you were just talking about refueling, but I've forgotten what it was now. It will come back to me later, and we will discuss it at a later point. We've gone back to green flag. Oh, it was to do with the high beams.
Yes.
Safety issue. If ever you've been walking in the pit lane, and both Andrew and Shay will confirm this, if you happen to stare into a car that's got full headlights on and then turn away, you won't see anything. So that's the reason.
Down the front straight, we've just got the Matteo Malicelli number 11 Bohemia Energy Racing with Scuderia Praha. I'm going to have a quick look at, from my point of view, and for those of you on the stream, and for those of you not seeing the pictures, we'll describe where he is. He's going through turn 3 at the moment with his high beams on, and it is like daylight ahead of him. He's just burned the retina of the CP racing driver in the GT3 car ahead of him, and that was Joe Foster behind the wheel of that car. Now into Repsol, which is the 180-degree right-hander. Downhill towards turn 5, a bit of extra flashing for the cars ahead, which includes the Vortex. And the onboard camera is actually probably better than the human eye and makes things look a little bit brighter in the cockpit. I'd be quite concerned how light the camera is for the rear view on that car and how light the dashboard is for Matteo Malicelli. Through 9 now at the top of the hill, a quick right-hander, sorry, I've done that twice today. Now under the bridge to turn 10, he's missed his braking point by not much, and he gets it back all the way down to first gear there. That's normally second. I did notice he didn't get up to 6th gear on the front straight either, as he's in the amphitheatre section towards the end of the lap, through 12 to the kink at 13, which comes up very quickly, and then down the hill into the last chicane, the RACC chicane. That car is very, very much on the nose, and as he's braking and turning in, he'll be left foot braking, of course, 2-pedal car, the back end just wanting to overtake the front a little bit. See if he gets up into 6th this time around as he goes past one of the RS3 Audis. 5th gear, still in 5th, just gets to 6th at the end of the pit lane for a couple of 100 metres, if that, not even that, down to 2nd for turn 1, shifts up to 3rd for turn 3, and I wonder if he'll go into 4th for turn 4. I don't think he's got the balance on that car at the moment. It looks a bit of a handful for Malicelli to drive. He's put a lot of very fast steering inputs in. Under the Repsol bridge, into the Repsol corner again. A lot of people drift into that in 3 and turn down to 2nd gear in the middle of the corner.
Very quick sector 1 time for Matteo that time.
Yeah, he had a good run through there, Paul, but the car looks really edgy and he's working very hard. Heading down to the bottom of the hill and turn number 7 and 8 before he heads up the hill to turn 9. A little bit of on the flash for one of the TCR cars. Takes quite a bit of curb on the right-hand side for the right-hander at 9. Again, just in the middle of the corner of the car. Just he went light over the top there. Gets up into 5th down the middle straight. Goes really deep into turn 10 and all the way back down to 1st again. That's the second time he's done that. The 112 Autofarm VW right ahead of him, getting the benefit of the flash from Malicelli. Not the best of qualifying for Scuderia Praha, championship leaders going into this, the final round of the European Championship. I tell you what, he's working really hard behind the wheel of that car, Paul. You want a car, you know, you'd like to see a car that's quite stable. Obviously, the pro drivers are going to push it a wee bit harder than the non-pros. But you've got to wonder how pleasant that's going to be to drive for Jiri Pisterik in particular, who, you know, I'm sure he won't mind me saying he's not a pro driver. He's a gentleman driver, and he wants a stable platform underneath him.
Yes, I mean, the 3 laps that Matteo has done since his pit stop, or since the pit stop where he took the car over from Josef Kral, a 52.9, a 49.9, and then a 50.5. Now, just interpreting the data that I'm getting, the actual top speeds of the car, very quick indeed, but
somebody's just spun.
Somebody just spun, we could hear that.
That's the 88 Audi. 13th position overall for that car, and it's Jürgen Haring for Car Collection Motorsport, and he's in the gravel, and that will require a snatch tractor to get him out.
That's a very deep embedding in the gravel, isn't it, for Jürgen Haring? His name's on the side of the door, and he is one of, I'll say 3, it's really 4, sorry, it is 3 AM drivers, but it's really only 2, because the third one is Tim Muller, and Tim is actually not that much of a slouch. But Taki Constantino and Jürgen Haring are the 2 less experienced drivers in that car, and I can't see how long this green is going to stay green before we have to go to code 60, whilst the marshals, as John says, get that Audi out of the gravel and to a place of safety. What I was about to say on the Matteo Malicelli car, the sector time's good, the top speed's very good, and as John was describing, the car seems a little bit lively in the corners, which would kind of be consistent with that, and the car just not quite having enough downforce, so it might just be that the car needs a little bit more downforce dialing into it. As I say, that's my reading of the data that I'm getting, where I'm getting some top speed figures which are very, very good, whereas the sector times are not quite as quick as the top speeds reflect that they ought to be.
I'm indebted to Rob Chalmers for a fabulous question, which I've set Andrew Marriott down there in the pit lane, who's just taken over from Shea Adam. Changed so quick that I didn't even notice it, so well done to you two. We have the snatch vehicle already at the Jürgen Haring Car Collection Audi. Car Collection, they don't usually run in bright orange, do they?
They do this year. That was an orange car that won at Dubai, if you remember.
Oh yes, yes it was.
And when Rick Breukers, amongst others, was driving it. So yeah, this year they've had the 88 car.
They used to have blue and white cars, didn't they?
That's right. Their 33, 34 cars were always the blue and white ones. And they were the ones that kind of ran as the AM cars. The 88 was the pro car that, as I say, ran as in orange. But at this race, the 88 is an AM car, but it's still running as an orange. But let's hope that it runs a bit more clockwork than it has done thus far.
A number of people have been asking us about these 2 SPX class KTM GTXs. And I've sent Andrew down to the pit lane to ask a question about this, and depending on the answer, I'll tell you why I've asked it. Andrew, who have you got down there?
I've got Laura Crayhammer down here. Laura, you've been putting in some very quick laps there.
Yes, we're feeling good in the car, and it's great to drive here in the night. We really enjoyed.
Now, we understand KTM is looking at running a 5-cylinder engine in the car. Have you got the 5-cylinder engine yet?
Yes, we are running a test car. It's a tryout for us, but it's a great scenery to try out the car, and we are trying the 5 cylinders, so yeah.
Does it feel more powerful?
Yes, it is more powerful, it feels more powerful, and it feels great in the car.
Because you race crossbows in the KTM Championship, don't you? You've got a lot of experience in these cars.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
You've got a lot of experience in KTMs. You race them very regularly.
Yes, I race them regularly. I'm lucky to drive for KTM, and the cars are great, but yeah, what is coming is even greater now. The development is super.
You've got a lady team manager as well.
Yes, Naomi. Naomi is a great team manager. She does a fantastic job, and it's good to have some ladies in the team.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much. And well, I think we've solved the question, haven't we? They have the 5-cylinder engine.
Now, the reason I asked that, and had the answer being no, we're running the standard 4-cylinder engine of Audi Origin. It's the 5-cylinder, 2.5 litre Audi engine that they've got in there. And the reason that's important is that is the development engine for the new KTM GT2 car, which isn't being built, or is being built, depending on who you talk to. But that car, they've been trying to get the GT2, Andrew, rumoured to be running around about, this is the new SRO formula, rumoured to be running around about 650, 700 horsepower, and trying to get that out of the 4-cylinder was a little difficult, shall we say, a bit hand grenadey. The 2.5 litre 5-cylinder engine has been a little bit unreliable. So the reason that they're now testing this 5-cylinder is to see, I think, how much power they can get out of it, Andrew.
Yeah, John, I was trying to break in because the car has just been pushed in with no power and has got that problem you mentioned. So the engine's done something horrible, and we'll find out in a moment. That's why I tried to dive in.
Right, thank you. And that red, white and black car is in. It's a significantly different looking car. There's a bit more aero on it as well. A new front end to the car with built-in LED lights, both in the middle and in the headlamp areas. It's a smashing looking thing anyway. And this new GTX version is, I think, a wonderful looking thing. And they've taken it to the next level. But interesting to see that once again, Paul, we're seeing a manufacturer, this time a relatively small manufacturer, but a manufacturer nevertheless, using Creventic to test, to develop, to prove the concept of cars. And we've seen new cars. I mean, BMW, AMG, Volkswagen, we've had all sorts of people in the past. Porsche
had the new 911 here, or not here, but in the Creventic races.
Yeah, in the early races, yeah.
And yes, I mean, the fact of the matter is that it's a very cost-effective way to go testing, but also to put some race mileage on the car as well. So, I mean, that means that we shouldn't call it a crossbow because it's a KTM GTX.
Yes,
rather than
correct.
it being, or do we call it a KTM GT Cross?
Oh, very good.
No, it's a GTX.
Spin for the Ligier. Is he going to get it out of the... I think he would have got it out of there if he'd kept going forward. Sebastian Poisson. Well, he may have just got himself... Oh, no, come on, get into first, Sebastian, and see if you can just gently pull that car out of that.
It's at turn 9, I'm being told.
It's a good-looking car, that Ligier. I really like that. I do.
Yes, I take exactly Andrew's point about it taking design cues from the original JST. Also has some elements of GT40 about it. So, you know, it's we talked about earlier on the
little bit of original,
classic.
yeah, a little bit of an original Honda NSX at the back end with that cam, very starkly cut off cam tail. I still say it has a little bit of the profile of the new C7 Corvette as well, the mid-engine Corvette. Is that a front-engine car then, or a mid-engine car, that Ligier?
No, it's a mid-engine.
Yeah, I thought it was. I like that. So are they doing that as a road car as well, or is it just a race car?
No, it's just a race car.
Oh, they need to do that as a road car. If Alpine can do their car as a race car,
as far as I know, actually, I may be wrong there.
I'm going to look that up.
I think you may have to look that up, whether that's it might be available as a road car. Now, as I said it, I think maybe there is a race version and a road version of it. Just go back quickly to the KTM GTX.
No road legal version planned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll have to buy a race car version. The KTM GTX then running, as you say, as a 5-cylinder, 2.5-litre turbocharged car, but as an SPX car, it does have to suffer, if you will, with a dynamic BOP, which means the amount of fuel it gets could go down as the race goes on. They're currently running at 90 litres of fuel per stop, but that could be reduced should their lap times improve still further. So that's going to be the story. It'll be interesting to see, as I say, as far as the SPX cars are concerned, because none of them, the Vortex, the Mark II V8, or the KTM GTX, are, to my mind, rock solid reliable. So we'll just see how they get on. And talking of reliability, we also, I think we can get an update now on the progress being made on the Renault RS01.
I think you're seeing it on screen. You're seeing the engine, a close-up, but I have to tell you, the engine is still not in the car. Apparently it's a 6-hour job to change the engine on this particular Renault RS01, so still a lot of work to do, I think. They definitely won't be out tonight.
Well, they are just putting their plenum back on the top of that car there, and that's V6 twin turbocharged engine. Still got a bit of work to do.
Me, they're still putting the engine together, John. Never mind putting the engine in the car.
Well, exactly. They're still putting the top on the engine. Yeah, the intakes going on the top of there at the moment. A few moments ago, problem for the Nordschleifer racing car. Excuse me, for the Ligier.
The Ligier is a Nordschleifer racing car.
Yes, the Nordschleifer racing car. Yes. And that was, the back end just got away. Is there something on the track there or something? I don't know. I love the rear lights on the 526. It's going again. 4 bars of rear lights set in at the back. Described by Ligier themselves as a car designed to celebrate Ligier's manufacturer's 50th anniversary, taking inspiration from the JS2 that finished second in the 1975 24 hours. Low running cost, long gaps between revisions, easy mechanical maintenance. The JS2 is designed to provide endless hours of pleasure behind the wheel. Accessible to all motorsport enthusiasts. He's had the same accident but didn't go off the next time around the same part of the track. I'm sure there must be something there on the track. Meantime, Herbert Motorsport in the garage at the moment, in the box.
That's the car that's currently quickest in this session, being the 91 car, which Robert Renauer doing the 48.5 was the Sven Muller time. Robert Renauer has been out in the car since and then brought it back into the pits, where he has been for 12 minutes.
So this Ligier is a mid-engine version of the Ginetta G55, effectively. They've got the 3.7 Ford V6. Space Frame GT, GT4 performance at the fraction of the cost. It can be homologated in the FIA Free Formula Sports Car Group E. €89,000 plus VAT, apparently, if you want one.
Joe Bradley, who I know you see from time to time on other occasions, John, can tell you a lot more about it, because he actually spoke to the team at some length during the Portimao 24 hours, or during that meeting, when the car actually went out and did some demonstration laps during the meeting. The hope is, from Ligier, and the invitation has been extended from Creventic, that they would have a class specifically for the Ligier JS2 car. So it would be good if we can get more of them out there, rather than just running as a class of its own as it is at the moment.
I'm just down in Herbert Motorsport. I'm hearing, because we talked, Paul, didn't we, earlier, about the penalties or the handicap. I think they've changed it again. Herbert are telling me that at every pit stop they're going to be held for 7 seconds. I don't know if you can tell us more about that, but that's what they're telling me.
Yes, that's right. Although I think it should only be. I'll have to check whether it's 6 seconds or 7 seconds. So the background to this all started back at COTA last year, when there was the introduction of the fuel compensation penalty,
yes.
Which those of you who are at COTA will remember. But the idea is that for cars which don't have to take on as board as much fuel, they get an advantage in the pits because they don't spend as long in the pits being refueled. And because the refueling is relatively slow, by which I mean a litre a second or even slower, that actually can make quite a difference if you're putting 10 litres less in the car. That means 10 seconds less on every pit stop. If you're stopping 20 times or so, that all adds up and can make a massive difference. So what was introduced by the Creventic team was this idea of a penalty. Now, originally, as Andrew says, these were, in fact, they're in the regulations as being, for the Ferrari, 7 25-second stop-and-go penalties in the penalty box. For the Porsche, 6 25-second stop-and-go penalties in the penalty box. The teams have gone along and said, actually, a better way of doing this, and probably a better way of running it, is actually to spend the time in the refueling area, because it's the refueling area which is where the time is being saved. So we should just have to spend the extra time refueling, just not putting any fuel in. So what they're going to do is, as the car comes into the pits, as it stops in front of the refueling station, they then wait for 6 seconds or 7 seconds before they put the refueling nozzles in. And then after 7 seconds, refueling nozzle can go in, pit stop can continue as normal.
And who's monitoring that?
There is a closed-circuit TV camera. There are several closed-circuit TV cameras over the refueling area, and there are cameras watching that with people with stopwatches, and also some rival teams are going to stand around with stopwatches watching as well.
I think that's a very smart tactical move by the teams, because if you've got to stop in your own box or in the penalty box, that's one thing. But if you are stationary for 6 or 7 seconds extra in the pump, you're taking up a pump for an extra amount of time, which means somebody else can't use it and potentially can't come into the pit lane because of what we were saying for earlier on. I think that's very Machiavellian and very clever.
It is the penalty applies to both Ferraris and the Porsches. I think there's 3 of them. No, 4 Porsches, which will have to spend the extra time. But on the other hand, I put it to you, the argument for the defence is, it is time that would anyway be spent in front of the refuelling area if the car took on more fuel. And there is a good argument that says that the small capacity turbocharged engines are more fuel efficient. They don't use as much fuel as a big, normally aspirated V10, for example. So the difference between the Audi and the Lamborghini type of engine and the smaller turbocharged engines on the Porsche and on the Ferrari, they are more fuel efficient. So they should spend the extra time in the refueling area that the other cars don't have to spend there. So
you pays your money, it takes your chance.
Yes, I think at some point you go too far with trying to make things equal. Somebody said to me, better remain nameless, you try and make everybody happy, you end up making nobody happy. So, you know...
But in some respects, that's better than making some people happy and some people very unhappy.
Exactly. So, you know... and from the spectator's point of view as well, I think it makes far more sense just to see a car in the refueling area. You can't really see that clearly whether there's a fuel nozzle in there or not. Whereas having a car in the penalty box, purely because it's more fuel efficient, doesn't quite sit right with me somehow. It's not a penalty at all. So why put it in the penalty box?
I'll be honest with you, I think a better way to have done it was to have given them less fuel. Fewer litres of fuel and make them stop more often.
Is another way to do it. And
it also changes the tactical situation for those guys. Let's have some of your thoughts on that, please. At RSL_studio. LA Filipponi says, reason number 127 why we like Creventic. Cars you never get to see anywhere else in proper racing conditions. Talking about that new development version of the KTM. Now we are calling it the KTM GTX. Sort of a development car for GT2 racing with the 5-cylinder engine. Alan Prosser says, blimey, that KTM with the screen on it is Tesla-sized. Huge rear view screen. Actually, I've retweeted that because I think that's really distracting, having what appears to be a computer monitor in that. And Rob Chalmers says, thank you very much for asking the question about the KTM. A lot of people like the KTM. He says the engines the humper, lots of torque, lots of power. That's the 5-cylinder, and not the hand grenade, the 4, not the humper. The hand grenade engine, the 4-cylinder, when it's cranked up to 700 plus horsepower. More of your thoughts, please, on RSL_studios. We head down to the Jordan's Red Camel area, the now famous bright orange Cupra, and Andrew has Ivo Breukers.
Of course, Ivo is just about to get in the car, but he's got an open face helmet. Ivo, great to race with your younger son.
Yes, it's always a pleasure to race with your son. I had the pleasure last race in Brno to race together with Luc and Rick. Unfortunately, Rick is now at the Nürburgring for the Blancpain, and now I'm racing only with Luc, and it's great. It's something special.
How's he doing?
He's doing very well. Last race in Portimao was the first time he was driving in the night. He's adjusting well, so we're having a lot of fun.
That last year he was here, and you just wouldn't let him race because he had to finish his school exams, I think, and he was very frustrated because he was just driving a simulator all day long.
I didn't get the answer.
Yeah, he was driving a simulator here last year.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. And now he's doing it for real, and we are enjoying ourselves very much. We love the track. Here was my first 24-hour race ever. Many years ago, and that's why I got hooked to endurance racing.
Ivo, I'll let you get in the car and hold you up.
Yeah, I'm not sure because he's out. Yes,
go on.
Good job. That wasn't a racing pit stop, Andrew. You'd have been in real trouble there. That first race, 24-hour race here, was before Creventic existed, and I think that was in an old Seat Leon that Ivo was racing in those days. And one of the reasons that Creventic came into being.
From Little Acorns.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. There've been a lot of people talking to me recently about Creventic and about the rise of Creventic and why we think it works and, you know, what do they do well and what could be improved upon. And no organising body is perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I think that one of the things that I like about Creventic is they've been open to ideas. They've listened to their customers, the teams and the drivers. Sometimes that's burned them, to be honest, because sometimes teams have made promises about types of cars and groups of cars that we're going to bring and then they haven't brought them. And I think particularly about the prototype series that they were asked about starting up. And but I think the thing that strikes me most, Paul, is the enthusiasm and the emotion and the passion that everybody has at Creventic for getting the job done and making sure everybody gets as much racing as possible. We'll discuss that in a moment. Andrew's working hard down in the pit lane. Let's go to Jean-Marc Nickman, who is down there. Pole position for the Webheads car when we start tomorrow.
Tom Dillman to come and talk to me at all. Tom, of course, had a very challenging season in Formula E. Tom, so you're trying to put Formula E season behind you and have a really good race here.
Yes, it was a tough season for me with no results. So this weekend I'm enjoying, having fun, fighting in the front, having fun with my teammates. And
yeah, he's a real character, isn't he?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, we did the pole. So mission accomplished for today, and tomorrow we will try to win.
Excellent, Joe. Nice to see you back in this series. Nice. You're putting a lot into it now. You're a sponsor of the series as well as racing in it.
Well, if they gave me such a good deal as they did last time, I would have done it from years ago. But, you know, it's really nice to see the Webheads brand on every car. It's a great stage for us to promote ourselves, not just, you know, here in Spain and Barcelona, but across worldwide. And it's quite weird coming up behind a car that says Webheads, to be honest, because I have to double take it. I go, hang on, which car am I in now? But so, yeah, listen, it's a great series, a 24-hour series, and great that Tom's here and our mutual friend Manfredi Revetto masterminded this all. So thank you, buddy. We really appreciate it. And yeah, it's a struggle. Listen, Tom's a great driver, but you know we're struggling a bit on with the readjustment of BOP now. And to be honest, we have no idea what's going to happen in the race tomorrow. So definitely watch it.
You've done a lot of different series, but you keep coming back to Creventic. What's so special about this group of racers?
Well, listen, Barcelona is a great race. Dubai is a race you can't miss, and I just have other commitments otherwise, racing in all kinds of series and pretty much every car you can possibly imagine. But I have to say, it's great to be back racing with Thomas here. I raced with him the last time in 2016, right here in the Porsche, and it feels just as good.
Tom, you've raced in almost every single seater series there is, except from Formula One. Different relaxed atmosphere. Do you enjoy it?
Yes, I raced Porsche in 2014 in the Carrera Cup, so I'm back to that car, and first time in a 24-hour series. Yeah, really relaxed atmosphere, but still competitive, everybody wants to fight for a good result, so yeah, it's good fun.
Just go back, there's big news about your Formula E team, which is a Chinese-owned team. I believe they're changing owners.
Yes, they do. I cannot say more, to be honest. So it's, as much as you saw in the news.
Okay, so that's Tom Dillman with his teammate J.M. Littman, a great pair of guys, and obviously very quick in the Porsche class. And I think that Paul speaks German. What does it say on the front of the bonnet here? Can you do a translation?
Unfortunately, we're not looking at that now. So
can we translate that?
No, we can't.
Oh.
Unfortunately, it is a company that helps you with a statutory compensation for delayed flights, and well, I know that Flug means flight, and the rest will leave to your imagination.
Just go onto the website and press Google Translate, and you'll find out all about it.
Interesting. What was the? Sorry, remind me who Tom drives for in FE.
Okay, it's the team called NIO.
Oh, it is NIO, yeah.
Chinese actually make electric cars. A lot
of electric cars. Yeah.
And it's our friend Diana Binks, of course, has been their PR all season, but they've been very unsuccessful. They've tried to develop their own powertrain, and it just hasn't worked. And so poor Tom Dillman and is that Oliver Rowland is the other driver maybe? They've had an awful year actually.
Their RML built a supercar for them, of which I think they've sold about 25 at the moment, and until relatively recently they held the all-electric car Nürburgring Nordschleife lap record. It was Peter Dumbreck back in 2017 when he did a 6 minutes 45.9 in the EP9. But I think that's been broken now by the VW.
Well, no, hasn't the Porsche now?
No, but that wasn't an electric car. That was an all-electric car.
I thought
6 minute 40
was an all-electric
No,
car. The Porsche. What's the new Porsche that's all-electric?
That's a Taycan. That's a street car.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
it was the ID.
Okay.
It was the VW ID, the Pikes Peak car.
The IDR.
The IDR that.
I read somewhere that the Taycan had done a record lap, but it might have been a record lap for a road car.
Yes.
Electric road car rather than a high-performance one.
Yeah.
Spoke to somebody else who's driven the Taycan, who was very, very positive about it. Yes, Johnny's now looking up YouTube videos from on board the Taycan. Just going back to
742 the Taycan did.
Okay.
As against the 645 of the NIO.
So the record that Porsche is claiming is for a road car.
Correct.
Right.
Absolutely right.
Presumably, therefore, on road tyres as well. Just going back to the
NIO was
Porsche,
on road tyres.
The car that's on pole position for the 991 class. It's the fastest car in this session as well in the 99. Actually, I tell a lie. It's not. It's fourth in this session. The fastest 991 class car is the 980 MRS car. But the important thing for JM and the team is that all four drivers have gone out and done their times. There's no point in going fast in this session anyway.
Yeah.
They've done that. As I say, all four have been out. We've still got another 15 minutes of this session remaining. I think a time that we didn't tell you about is Barwell Motorsport car, which has now gone back up to second place. It's not as quick as the Hairbear Porsche.
Was that Dennis Lind who put that in by any chance?
It was Dennis, or was it? It was 48.8 from Dennis Lind. Yeah, so Dennis Lind is the quickest drivers so far. Dennis has done a 1 minute 48.8 then. To be second, the Scuderia Praha Ferrari, although that's a Malicelli time, a 48.9 is third fastest. And then the 93 car, which is the Klaus Bachler time, is fourth fastest. So Herbert first and fourth, Barwell second, Ferrari, Scuderia Praha third. Fifth is Hoffer Racing with the Mercedes, and sixth is the GPX Porsche.
Problem out on the circuit, which we'll get to in a moment as soon as we can see and identify the car. Just to pay off that electric Nürburgring thing, the IDR did a 6:05.336, so 40 seconds quicker than Peter Dunbrek. Although I spoke to Peter after he'd done that on Midweek Motorsport a couple of years ago, and they had, for them, what they thought was rather too much power left at the end of it. They had 13% power left at the end of that, so they'd only run it at, I think, 1,300 horsepower of the 1,600 that was available on that RML belt Neo AP9. And there was some talk of that car going back there. Maybe now that VW have done it, they won't feel the need to, but like to see that back there. Fantastic British designed, engineered and built car. A lot of British components on that car as well. Amazing thing to look at. The carbon work on it was absolutely gorgeous. 14 minutes to go in this night session. Remember, we've got full coverage of all of the hours of racing tomorrow. That's 11:30 Central European time. Shea Adam on the grid walk right through till close down at midnight, and then we'll be back at 8 o'clock in the morning for the last 4 hours to the flag. There'll be onboards available through the night and on the Creventic site, so you'll be able to cycle through them if you do want to keep up to date with what's going on. And we'll be back at 8 with an update on Sunday morning again, Central European time. Synchro back out, Alan James in the 676 production Honda, with the Type R just letting the Mark Cars 2 Coupe go by as he heads down towards turn 10, the hairpin at the bottom of the middle part of the circuit. He'll go down to second or third, I would think, for that. Looks in a fairly relaxed mode, Alan. I think he might be coming into the pitch, just keeping out the way of everybody. Stick shift car, that. It's a 3-pedal car, so absolutely a production-based machine from the team at Honda at Swindon.
Just keeping an eye down times overall. Everybody's been out with the one exception of the Equipe Verschoor Renault RS01. Everybody else has gone out and done a good quantity of laps, and in fact, just quickly checking, I can't see anybody who has failed to get all their drivers qualified.
Good.
And for some of them, that's been a 5-driver lineup, getting them each out in the car and through can take a little while, as we've said, but even those cars we've seen spinning off into the gravel have managed to get back to the pits and continue on their way.
The Barwell Lamborghini's just stopped in front of me here. We'll just turn around and see it, and you'll see it on the front wheel, just checking the brakes. Now, they've just practiced a rotor, a disc brake change a few minutes ago, and I'm told they managed to change the 2 front disc brakes in 3 minutes, which is pretty good going. I've also just found out that they're very happy now with the fuel system on this car. They think it's fine. They've cycled all the drivers through the car, and they're probably just about to park it and go and have a beer.
Or a soft drink, if they prefer, where we're not saying they have to drink alcoholic beverages. Very pleasant evening here at Montmello, Circuit de Catalunya, the venue for the final round of the Hankook 24 Hours for 2019. That's the European part of the championship that's coming to an end. We'll be off to Circuit of the Americas in November for the final round of the international part of the series, the Continents Championship. And a few people have been asking about next year's calendar. It does normally come out about this time. Mark Bates on the Radio Show Limited Listeners Collective thread for this event asking about that. There was a I was going to say provisional calendar. It's a bit more than that, to be honest. There's been some dates presented to the teams and the drivers today. There's a couple of little I's to dots and T's to cross, I think. There's not been a press release so far about that. It's a very interesting looking calendar with some changes. But I think what we'll do is we'll wait to Gary Willems is here this weekend, and we'll try and get a word with Gary to run through that and see how much Creventic want to talk about them on, because there's a couple of venues that have yet, I think, to confirm.
And dates as well, I think,
yes.
John, as well. Yes, I mean, we heard from Ivo Breukers, who is part of the Creventic organisation. If we do hear from Gary, then... if you're listening, you're not getting the screen as well. One of the things that everybody we speak to from Creventic, and you've said this, John, they've got so much enthusiasm which they bring to it, and you get it in listening to Gary. You know, sometimes he's got so much to say that he can't get his words out in time. And I think the good news is, and as I say, as John has just described, the calendar hasn't yet been issued. The good news is that Creventic is keeping going. It's not that they're about to fold up and make this the final season or anything. I mean, we do have a calendar that they're talking about. It's being presented to the drivers. And as John was saying earlier on, Creventic have always believed in involving the competitors and the entrants in what they're doing and the decisions that they're going through. And I think it's just a very good way of making their... pitching out what the offer is, and you know, we've talked about the website, everything that's available on the website, all the regulations are available on the website, all of the notice board is available on the website. There is an absolute freedom of information that Creventic approaches these things with.
A plethora.
More of that.
Klaus Klostermann was the car that was going slowly earlier on that I didn't identify, but thanks to the king of the screenshot, Alan Prosser, he's fired in that to me, and I can see clearly it's the Ginetta G55 from Perfection Racing Europe, PRE, the number 345 car. Although that has now made it back to the pits. Alan, as ever, I'm indebted to you. At RSL_studio, if you want to send us anything or put something in front of us for us to talk about or chat about.
Yes, the Perfection Racing, but Red Horse sponsored car. Klaus sharing with Michael Klostermann, Tommy Laugerson, the other driver of that car, and that might be one. There's only those three that have been out in that car, and they do have a fourth driver, Rene Rasmussen, and he hasn't been out in the car yet, so 7 minutes of the session remaining, and having said that everybody had qualified, Rene Rasmussen hasn't yet been out in the Red Horse Ginetta, possibly as a result of Klaus Klostermann having taken some time out and not having got in the car or having delayed the car a little bit.
The Porsche Taycan holds the four-door EV road car record at the Nürburgring. The other record that it holds is a 24-hour distance record with a twice round-the-clock run where they covered 3,475 kilometres, averaging 144 kilometres an hour, including charging. Although that wasn't done at the Nürburgring, that was done at the Nardo Superspeedway. But nevertheless, that is a road car, Porsche's four-door electric road car that's coming shortly. I'm quite impressed by that.
As I say, having had a conversation with somebody recently, he is a Porsche regular, and he couldn't speak highly enough about the Taycan. He said it's going to change the way electric cars work.
Well, I think Audi and Porsche, actually. I was at Washington, D.C., at the airport of Washington, D.C., and Audi USA are based around the corner at Herndon there. And as I arrived there last week, one of the big signs there was showing all the new e-tron Audis. And the tagline was, electric goes Audi, which I thought was really nice to turn that around. And talk to the guys at Porsche, both in the US and in Germany. you'll not be able to get one. There'll be a waiting list for those Taycans because people will buy it, not because it's an electric car, they'll buy it because it's a new Porsche. And you'll just not be able to buy one. And what they're doing is, you know, they are upping the ante. And funny enough, we were talking about electric racing earlier on today, and about, you know, there's Tom Dillman who's been here, and Formula E strikes a chord with some people. Some people are vehemently against it. But ultimately, the more electric cars, full electric cars we have on the streets, that becomes more prevalent, the more that electric racing and the lack of noise and the lack of smell and the short circuits and the narrow circuits and the low camera angles to make the cars look like they're going faster, that will all become acceptable. In the same way that racing touring cars was, you know, a product of people looking at hot hatches and souped up cars on the streets, and they had their time, particularly in the early 90s, and people were like, oh, my dad drives to work in one of those, because there was a lot of them around. And when there's a lot of electric cars around, they won't be an unusual sight, and people will expect to see them racing.
I think the point with the Taycan is if it can do the kind of numbers that you've just mentioned at Nardo, they won't need to go to little street circuits which are built for the purpose. They'll be able to come to Barcelona, and they should have a race against petrol-driven cars. I think, you know, we don't necessarily need to get into motorsport where everything is the same.
Segregated, yeah.
The beauty of Creventic is you can bring along anything you want. You know, we had a period in the WEC where you had diesels, you had different types of hybrid, and for my money, I would far rather go and see a mixed class race where I can compare an electric car against a petrol-driven car against a diesel car, albeit with some kind of balancing. But it gives you that. You know, it's like going to a motor show and watching all the same car. What's the point? Go to a motor show, you want to see lots of different types of cars. Same with a motor race.
Which is why endurance racing to me is so interesting, because there's variety in the sight, in the sounds, in the way people go about. And this comes back to, you know, being careful not to over-regulate. Certain cars have inherent advantages, and so do certain drivers. And you know, one of the things I like about endurance racing is you might have Johnny Softfoot, who can get an extra 2 laps out of a car. Now, why should you penalise him for doing that? If he can do the same lap times as everybody else, but his lift and coast is better, if he's a Scott Dixon or a Dario Franchitti who can seemingly make fuel, then why should you penalise him for that and bring him in after 75 minutes when he can actually do 82 minutes? That, to me, is over-regulation, and I want to see variety, and I want to see all of that happening, and then in the last stint of the race, it all comes back together again, which is invariably what we've seen at various times during the year in IMSA, in other races, sometimes at Le Mans, certainly in some of the races we've seen at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, where in the 4-hour races, Paul, there's more than one way to go about that, and not everybody says, "Oh, I'm going to do 8 laps. I want to do 9 laps." Some people go, "I'm going to break it up into 7-lap stints."
As you say, there's different ways of doing these things, and yeah, why not go along with that? How long we got? Minute and 40 seconds still remaining. Right. You're pointing at a
I got very excited about a purple time.
Yes, that's because it's an SPX class car. The time that John is pointing at is because on an SPX car, Johannes Stuck, that's the junior version, has got
minor, in fact, because he's the third, isn't he?
0.9, yes, quite. 152.973, and the theoretical lap time. This is exactly the column that will cost that car, if he does that 3 times in the race, it'll cost that car 10 litres of fuel. So SPX has this self-regulating balance of performance, which is another Creventic idea, which nobody else has thought of, which is reducing the amount of fuel that you can take on board the longer the race goes on. And we get a signal of that by getting a column in red on the far right-hand side of our screen.
I see. Andrew, can I add on the Stucks?
Well, I just went and looked at the car with the engine cover off, and I counted 5 plugs, so it is definitely a 5-cylinder engine. Just to clear up that Ginetta G55, they had a front upright break, I believe, or certainly get damaged, and the car had a wheel come off, or almost come off, so they came in, and that Rasmussen, the driver who hasn't actually qualified in the night, he went out in the car, and then it had electrical problems, and they're still trying to fix that. So that was the problem with the Ginetta G55. As for your electric car racing, I'm going to see Historics race. 250F Mazdas for me.
You can have them refitted with a nice electric motor, you know, like those E-types and everything else that's going. Andrew's just let out a cry.
Harumph, said Andrew.
Yeah.
Checkered flag is out.
Checkered flag is out. The Ginetta, by the way, had also was getting a new floor at the start of the session. Shears just reminded me. Chris Suku says it does appear that Creventic have a wonderfully customer-centric approach to what they do. And that is customers, whether it's drivers or teams. Teams have to do it as a business. Customers have to see it as good value. And you, sitting wherever you are around the world, and the ones who do come to that, and I know this doesn't attract huge crowds. Some more circuits than others will come here. And you will be watching and listening further afield, but you all have a part to play. And, you know, thank you for being a part of that. As we come to the end of the session, Paul.
Yes, absolutely. So the good point that Andrew just made there about the Ginetta, Rasmussen having driven the car, obviously didn't set the driver ID to the right place, because my driver ID hasn't registered a lap for him. So that car is the only other one I've spotted who hasn't done the regulation lap times. Opportunity for the teams to do some driver change practice, those who didn't do it immediately before the session. Somebody said, I mean, it is crucially important to get every second you can, and because these pit stops are unregulated as far as the bit that takes place in front of the garage is concerned, the quicker you can get the driver in and out, the quicker, that's real time that you can make up, that you then have to make up on the circuit if you're not making it up anywhere else.
Let's take a look at how they have finished. There's a few cars still to cross the line. Last bunch of them going across the line now. Remember, this does not count for anything, but it was very tight again at the top of the field. The 91 Herbeth Motorsport Porsche, the Gen 2 GT3R that led from Barwell. Barwell will start on pole position for the Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona tomorrow. Then Bohemia Energy racing with Scuderia Praha, just half a second away from the top time. Now, they qualified in 9th position. I think they'll be a bit happier with that, and only half a second behind this evening. Fricadelli up with the top 4 with their Porsche. Herbeth in 5th with their AM car, and that is the best of the AM cars, ahead of the Hoffa Racing AMG GT3 in 6th position. Second of the Ferraris. In 8th position, just behind the GPX Racing Porsche, and making up the top 10, the CP Racing, the American Mercedes, the 85 car, and the Car Collection Motorsport A6 AM Audi. That's the 34 car in 10th position. That's your top 10. Outside the top 10, we'll pick up some of the other class leaders. SPX, there's a trio of them just outside the top 10, led by the Vortex with the KTM GTX in second. That's the 2160 Johannes Stuck car at the end there. Then the Team Clickfurs DE. Now that is a Porsche 991 Cup, but that's an MR. That's a Montai Racing breathed on car in 3rd position. Further down in the top 20, in 18th position, the best of the 991 classes goes to the Race Union by MRS GT Gen 2 991 Cup car. That's the number 980 car. And we've got the top GT4 car in there as well at 18th position. That's the Aston Martin here this evening in the top 20, just ahead of that BMW, although the BMW got the pole position in the earlier qualifying session. Outside that's the top 20. Outside the top 20 in GT we're in at the moment. Looking down through the rest of the GT4 and the 991 fields. The Equipe Vacher car, the 28th position machine, sadly still waiting for its twin-turbo V6 Nismo engine to go in that car. It was somewhat laconic at the end of that session. They appeared to be bolting an engine together and putting the injection and plenum chambers on the top of that. So they weren't taking, it wasn't going to go in the car this evening. We'll check on that tomorrow, of course, and hope that it makes the race, that very pretty metallic blue and white car. So that's GT. TCE, a completely separate race, and here's how they stood at the end of night practice with all of the drivers, other than the Equipe Verschure guys, having had their night laps. It was the KTM Crossbow SP3 car at the top of the times. That is the RTR machine. Ahead of the BMW in second from Munchkopf, the 310 car. Best of the TCRs, Autorama, AC Motorsport with the Audi, and then the best of the Cupras was the Red Camel. So the three manufacturers there in the top three. Third in SP3, just on the outside of the top 10, the PR&V. New team that. Hit to Creventic, the 302 Porsche Cayman GT4 GT4 Club Sport, and that's your top 10 for TCE. Just outside the top 10, we're looking for the A3. It was the SP3 was Performance Racing Europe down there in 14th position. Synchro, the best of the A3 cars with their 676, that venerable Honda with the stick shift, remember, and Matt Neal into there at the weekend. So that's the night practice. Remember, that's not how they qualified. All the details for qualifying and the times that were on air tomorrow will be on the www.24H Series website. Thanks to Paul, to Shay, and to Andrew. It's been a fantastic evening here at Barcelona. Brilliant day of practice, qualifying, and night practice here for the first day of the Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona. Days 2 and the conclusion on day 3 coming up live in sound and vision, and we'll be back live at 11:30, 11:30 Central European time on the grid with our counts down to green, and then the whole of the first hours without the first 12 hours without break or block all the way around the world, no fees either, and then the overnight sessions will be available from the onboards, and we'll be back for the last 4 hours on Sunday Saturday morning. Brilliant stuff by everyone on the cameras and mixing in the truck as well. Thanks to 021, our broadcast partners here, for giving us some great pictures. And we'll be back tomorrow. Have a great evening wherever you are in the world. The Hankook 24 Hours of Barcelona. Countdown to green, 11:30 CET, Saturday morning. Welcome to the Endurance Racing Series for GT and touring cars. With the champion of the continent, European Championship, TCR Spa 500 and TCR Middle East. That's 12 races across 3 continents. The best endurance racing experience for everyone. Welcome to the world of endurance. This is endurance.